Hey guys, welcome to my corner of the internet. Today I'm going to be talking about my postpartum depression. My daughter is now 3 and I have been coping, I don't even know what to call it, but I have been coping with, I don't know, I don't want to say I'm dealing with it. Coping with it? No, I don't know. Whatever. With it for about 3 years now, and it's definitely been a journey, a very big roller coaster journey. I do want to put a disclaimer on here, as I am not a medical professional. I was an x-ray tech, so I'm not a doctor, I'm not a pharmacist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, but this has just been my journey with my postpartum depression, and please don't do some of the reckless things that I've done. Like, I'll kind of get into it later on, like how I just got off of my antidepressants without telling my physician. Like, don't do things like that, especially if you have to be, especially because a lot of people, when you're on antidepressants, you have to be on them. I can admit that was very reckless on my part, but yeah, I'm just going to tell you guys my journey and the things that I've done and kind of how I am right now 3 years later. But please, please, please don't take like my advice. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there before we started the video. So yeah, let's get started. I was diagnosed with postpartum depression probably 3 or 4 months after my daughter was born, and in all honesty, I thought it was the baby blues. Nobody really talks about the postpartum depression. Nobody tells you, you know, the tough stuff after birth. Everyone wants to talk about how wonderful it is to have a baby and all of these things, but nobody talks about like how you have the epic period for like 6 weeks and how you can't walk and all of these things. Like, nobody tells you about it. I had a friend who told me about the baby blues, and I honestly thought I had baby blues. I honestly thought maybe my baby blues were lasting a little longer, and I think in truth, like, baby blues is only supposed to last like a couple weeks, and it was about 3 months for me. And I think because you're such a zombie when you have a newborn anyway, you don't really realize, you're kind of gone like autopilot, right? And you're just like concerned about this little human that you're trying to keep alive, that you just kind of forget about yourself. So I was just kind of on autopilot, and in all honesty, I didn't think anything was wrong. Like, nobody else really kind of saw that anything was wrong. And I remember so vividly the first time that I realized that something was wrong. I'm prepared today, I have tissues. It was the first time that I realized that I wasn't okay. And I remember I was sitting in my bed, feeding my daughter, and just, this is like the first time of me saying it out loud. So, I remember holding my daughter and thinking, sorry, but I remember holding my daughter and thinking she would be better off without me, because I don't even know why I thought that, but I just remember just holding her and thinking that her life would probably be better off without me there. And then my thoughts circulated to how I was going to end my life. Then my mind kind of circulated to, okay, well, since I think my daughter's life is going to be better off without me, how am I going to do it? And it just was like this crazy chain reaction of how I was going to do it, and what, you know, when I was going to do it, and, you know, where I was going to drop off my daughter. And that's when I knew right then and there that I had an issue and that I wasn't okay. So after all those thoughts, I got myself to a good place of, no, these thoughts are wrong, and that I'm not okay, and that I needed help. So I called my primary care doctor and I scheduled an appointment, and I told them I needed to come in as soon as possible and stuff like that. And so they actually got me in, I think, that day, and my doctor prescribed antidepressants and a therapist. And at that point I said no. I said I don't want to be on antidepressants. I think that maybe I can power through it without drugs. So, you know, he was like, no, I really think you should be on them and all of these things. And I didn't want to argue with him, so I said, okay, whatever. Took the prescription. Well, the prescription got sent to my pharmacy. I went in and picked them up, and I never took them. And I said, you know, I'm just going to get myself to a good place some other way. I'm going to try, like, support groups and stuff like that. And that was just kind of my thinking, is like, okay, well, maybe if I go and I'm around people who are going through the same thing as me, then maybe I won't need to take all of these drugs and go to a therapist. And maybe if I'm just around other moms, I'll be okay, you know. So I started looking for support groups and stuff like that. And oh, I kind of forgot a big important thing. So what kind of spiraled for me was, at 3 months I had an emergency appendectomy, which is just getting your appendix removed. My appendix almost ruptured one night, so we went to the ER and I had an emergency surgery. And so I thought it was just me not having an appendix, and like my hormones were already out of whack because you know, I just had a baby, I was breastfeeding and stuff like that. So I just thought, like, I don't need these drugs because my body's just trying to adapt to the new hormones. And that's why I didn't take the medicine. And I was already on like painkillers and stuff like that. And I was just like, okay, no. And I wasn't really working and I wasn't really around people. So I was like, all right, I just need to go and be around people. I just need to go and be around other moms that are going through what I'm going through. So that's why I didn't want to get on the antidepressants. And I did that for quite some time, and I felt like it was helping, but not really. So then, legit, probably less than 2 months later, I had another surgery. They wanted to take out my gallbladder right then and there, and I said, no, I don't want to take it out right now, like, not right now, like, can I just schedule it so I can plan my life around it? So I got my gallbladder removed probably a week after being rushed to the ER again. And after that surgery, my depression got worse. So after I healed from that, I started to take my antidepressants. No, I went back to the doctors because they had to make sure everything was okay with all of my surgeries that I've had in like less than 2 months. And my doctor asked me, how are the antidepressants going, and did I schedule an appointment with my therapist? And I was honest. I said no. I said, no, I'm not taking the antidepressants. And he asked why, and I explained to him, and he's like, you have severe depression. Like, you have severe postpartum depression. You can't, like, you need to take it. So I started taking it. And he's like, you need to call a therapist. Like, I gave you the number. Like, you need to take control of your life because you might not be here tomorrow. And that hit hard for me. And so I went home. I took my antidepressant. It made me tired. But I was just really tired all the time. Like, my depression was the kind of depression where I felt just tired all the time. And I would be sleeping all the time. But for some reason, the Zoloft made me way more tired. So I would take it at night. The number to the therapist that they gave me, they were so booked out, they couldn't even get me until like the end of the year. And I think at this point it was probably August. So I was like waiting to get into this therapist. So I was just taking my Zoloft, doing what my doctor told me to do. And finally, my therapist got me in, and then they ended up outsourcing me to another clinic because they were completely booked. And I was like, great, you couldn't have just outsourced me before. I've waited all of these months to come see you guys. But that was when, hold on. So I got outsourced and I met my therapist, and I loved my therapist. Like, I got so lucky with her. Like, she honestly probably saved my life and changed my life for the better. So for everyone who has something bad to say about people who are in therapy or antidepressants, like, no, therapy has changed my life. So I was in therapy for quite some time, and then my therapist no longer took my insurance, so I stopped going. So my therapist ended up referring me to a different therapist that took my insurance. But all these things happened, and I ended up not going to therapy anymore. And it's proven that if you're in antidepressants and you're in talk therapy, that it works the best. And it honestly put me in a really good place. And so I stopped therapy after some time, and I just stayed on my Zoloft. And Zoloft was helping. However, I still wasn't getting to a better place. Like, I was just kind of stable, and I was okay with stable. But I had a family member who was like, let's try more of a natural route for you instead of having to like drug yourself every day. Like, do something more natural. Have you thought of CBD oil? And I was like, no, I don't really think like CBD is kind of the route that I really want to go. I know they're really careful about cross-contamination, about no THC being in it, but I don't know, it just didn't appeal to me at the time. And then my Zoloft stopped working. I stopped breastfeeding. So I stopped breastfeeding, and then we had to go down in my dosage of Zoloft, and it was just messing me up so bad. It was giving me anxiety, and then I started to lose like a lot of weight and stuff like that. So as we're trying to adjust my Zoloft thing, it was just such a time, like, just trying to figure it out. And then so my family member, again, she was like, hey, just try the CBD. I'll try it with you. And this is what I loved about her, was everything she's recommended, she's like, I'll do it with you. She was always willing to do it with me. So I was like, all right, well, I can't take this like anxiety that I feel. It was like the Zoloft would make me shake throughout the day, and like my mind would go faster than like my body could keep up with, and it was just like the strangest feeling ever. So I completely stopped taking Zoloft, and I started taking tinctures of CBD oil. It was just pure CBD oil, that's all it was, and it helped. I started taking like a half a tincture at night, and it would help me sleep and stuff like that, and then it progressively turned into taking a full tincture, and I would take it in the morning, and that was great, and that worked for a really long time. And then I was applying for the airlines. So some people say you can trace CBD in your bloodstream, or like it'll show up in a drug test. Some people say it doesn't. It was a risk that I wasn't willing to take, so I got off of CBD oil, and my family member found this thing called Happy Coffee. I think it's called like Elevate, but it's like a happy coffee plus these like pills that you take that's supposed to elevate your serotonin levels. And so again, she was like, I'll do it with you. And I was like, okay. And remember, my family member does not have postpartum depression, but she was just wanting to do these things with me. And this happy coffee was supposed to help you lose weight too, so that's kind of why she was doing it. So we tried the happy coffee. First I tried the hot chocolate, and I really liked it, but and these pills that it came with, and I didn't feel like it was doing much, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it 3 months. So then the next month I switched over to the coffee. Didn't really see much. And then the 3rd month I switched to the nitro coffee, and didn't see much. So at that point I was like, all right, well, none of this is working. What am I gonna do now? So I think at that point I just completely got off of everything, and I said, F it. I'm just gonna try to deal with this depression by myself and find another way to cope, because the Zoloft's not working and all these other things. The one thing that worked, I can't take because I'm afraid that I'm not going to get a job of flying. So I was kind of off of everything for a little bit, and then I started flying, and my depression came back like hard. Like I think it was always kind of there, but it came back kind of hard, like full force, and I was like, okay, I can't do this. So I got back onto Zoloft, but like the lowest dosage that you could get on, and again, it was messing with me. I gained about 15 pounds off of it. So I was like, okay, there has to be another way, but it's helping. So I was taking it every other day, and it was kind of helping, and I was like, F it, like Zoloft just isn't the way. Went back to my doctor, and I was like, Zoloft just isn't doing it for me anymore. I'm gaining all of this weight from it, and it's like making me feel worse, and there has to be something else that I can try. So then they put me on Cymbalta, and Cymbalta messed me up so bad that it was just insane what it did to my body. But I was so desperate to like feel better and like get to a good place, and I was like, no, just stick it out. My doctor prescribed Cymbalta, and he's like, okay, check back in with me in 2 weeks. So and he's like, take it at night. So I took it at night at 8 o'clock, and he was like, kind of take it every day at the same time. And I was like, okay. I took it on a Friday night, knocked out, woke up the next day, and I was bedridden. Like I had the biggest headache. I felt dehydrated the whole time. I wasn't hungry. I couldn't move. I just wanted to die at that point. Like my body was just like, no. But again, I was like, okay, it's fine. I'm gonna be fine. Took it Saturday night at 8, and just kind of kept doing this for the full 2 weeks. And for a whole week, I had this pounding migraine, and finally I was like, okay, this isn't normal. And I called my doctor. My doctor wasn't in, so then they referred me to the nurse, and the nurse was like, maybe you should go to the ER. And I was like, I don't want to go to the ER, especially kind of in the midst of this whole coronavirus thing. I don't want to take up a bed when this isn't an emergency. And she was like, well, we're just kind of scared that you could have bleeding in the brain at this point. And I was like, what a way to freak me out. I was like, okay, well, can I speak to the physician first before I rush over to the ER? Because again, during coronavirus, I don't want to take a bed that doesn't need to be taken. So the physician calls me back, and we're like talking about it, and he's like, oh, that's a totally like normal symptom of taking Cymbalta. I was like, all right, if you say so. So of course I continued to take it for the next week, and then I had my virtual visit with my primary doctor. He's like, how's it going? I was like, not good. I get these crazy headaches, I get getting these migraines from it, and now I'm getting lockjaw. Like my jaws would lock, or I would clench my teeth all day. And he's like, why didn't you call me? I was like, I called and they told me the physician that I spoke to said just to stay on it. So I was like, okay, like just stay on it. And so he's like, yeah, no, we don't want that for you. So let's try something else. And now I'm on Effexor XR, Effexor something, I don't know, it's another antidepressant. I've been on it for about a month. I started at a very low dose, and he was like, all right, let's see you back in a month and see how this goes. And I was like, okay, great. And I felt so good after I got on this one. No weight gain. My weight went kind of back to normal, to my normal weight. And I thought I was doing great. So at my 1 month checkup, he was like, you're still scoring pretty high on the charts. And I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And he's like, let's just up your dosage and see how that goes. So we've upped my dosage. I'm feeling good on it. And this is where we're at. Postpartum, again, my daughter's 3. I was really hoping that it would be one of those things where people are like, oh yeah, after a year and a half or after I stopped breastfeeding, like I was fine. And then I spoke to some people that were like, oh yeah, like at 2, it'll go, when your kid turns 2, it'll go away. And I've been waiting. My daughter's 3, and I'm still coping and dealing, whatever you want to call it. I've just kind of accepted that maybe postpartum depression is something that I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. And I know another thing that people have told me was get pregnant again. No, I'm not getting pregnant again. I'm good. So get that thought and throw it out the window. It sucks. I think what took me so long to realize that I had depression was I've never had like a mental illness up until then, and I feel like in any Asian culture, like depression isn't talked about, mental illness isn't talked about, like depression isn't a thing, anxiety isn't a thing, you not feeling okay isn't a thing. But I'm here to tell you, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to say I'm not okay, and it's okay to say I need help, and reach out to somebody that you can trust and talk to about these things, because transitioning into a mom is hard, especially a new mom, because all of these weird things are happening to your body and you just don't know. And in all honesty, like I've had this for 3 years, and I just told my mom a month ago that I was diagnosed with postpartum depression when my daughter was like 3 or 4 months old. And I don't fault her for it. She just kind of acknowledged it and changed the subject, because in our culture we don't talk about things like this and we don't acknowledge things like this. But now she knows. I just think it's so weird that like something so common is so taboo to talk about in like everyday life. I am so grateful to have had that family member in my life, and that she's still in my life, that she would constantly text me and check up on me and make sure that I was okay, and that she was always willing to try something new with me and just trying to find all of these things to help me get better in more of a natural, holistic way, because she really is like my sister from another mister. I'm glad that I had her to lean on, and where I felt comfortable enough to where I could confide in her. And I hope that if you're going through your postpartum, that you have somebody to talk to and that you have somebody to rely on, because everybody just kind of needs that shoulder. And if you don't feel like you have anyone, go ahead and reach out to me in my DMs on Instagram. I'll respond to you and I'll be there for you. I'm a great listener. I just hope that one day we can talk about mental illness more broad, and for people who don't believe that mental illness is a real thing, well, you're wrong. It is. And you guys might say, oh, it's because you're overly sensitive and that's why you're depressed. No, I am not a sensitive person, trust me. I am far from sensitive. Like, people tell me I need to be more sensitive. I'm also that person that just kind of blurts out things, but it is what it is. But yeah, depression's a thing, mental illness is a thing, so stop thinking that people are making it up and brushing it under the rug. So anyways, guys, I'm done. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to tap that subscribe button and that notification bell, because we upload every Tuesdays and Fridays, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.